Hello friend, last previous lecture we discussed on the meaning, definition of macroeconomics, and the lecture number 2 we discussed about the nature of business economics or nature of macroeconomics. With the help of some feature we can explain the nature of macroeconomics. And now today we discuss on the topic scope of macroeconomics. So let us start with our new point. The scope. So what is mean by the scope? The scope of the particular subject is the subject matter or the area of the study or the subject boundaries. So what actually is studied into this subject is mentioned into the scope of particular subject. So scope of macroeconomics as compared to microeconomics, it is very wide and the broad. The scope of particular subject means the subject matter or what actually deal with. So macroeconomics scope is very large and include the wide range of aggregate variables. Variables such as national income, total employment, general price level, economic growth rate, total saving, total investment, and examine the interrelation and interdependency of these all aggregate variables. So also include analysis of these aggregate determined and their determination, causes of fluctuation in them, and macroeconomics is also known as the theory of income, of explain the focus which determine the level of national income and the employment level in the economy. So macroeconomics is known as the income theory. So next is the our point. So what actually the mention into the scope of macroeconomics? So scope of macroeconomics we can explain with the following points. Means the theory of income and employment, theory of general price level, theory of economic growth, theory of distribution. So with the help of these various theories we can explain the macroeconomic scope. Also we study the theory of consumption, theory of investment, theory of business cycle, and theory of trade. So let's start with our first point. So scope of macroeconomics is the first point in the theory of income and employment. So macroeconomics is the deal with the theory of income and employment. There are some classical theories, the classical economics like Adam Smith, J.B. Say, Fisher. All these people explain their classical theory, their views about the employment and the income, how the income level are determined. So macroeconomics explain what determines the level of employment and national income of economy, and what are the reasons of fluctuation in national income output and the employment. And the modern theory is explained by the J.M. Keynes in 1936, his book, and decide the general level of employment, national income. So he explained his theory and in his book the general theory of employment, interest and money. So according to him, it is determined the aggregate demand and aggregate supply of national income and output level, while the aggregate supply is the remaining constant in the short term. So according to him, the deficiency in the aggregate demand, increase of the employment and remove the recession, therefore need to increase in effective demand. So J.M. Keynes is the man explain his theory related to theory of income and employment. So that's why in the modern macroeconomics is called father of economics, father of macroeconomics is J.M. Keynes. So theory of income and employment is the subject matter and scope of macroeconomics. That's why macroeconomics is known as income theory, just like the microeconomics is known as price theory. The next point is theory of general price level. How the general price level is determined is the subject matter of macroeconomics. So macroeconomics is explain the problem of inflation. It is the major problem faced by the developed and developing countries in the last few years. Because the continuous rising the price of goods and services is called the inflation. The macroeconomics show that how the general price is determined and further explain what are the causes of the fluctuation in them. The study of general price level is a significant account of the problem created by the inflation and deflation. So the fluctuation in the price level means the subject area of the macroeconomics. General price level is a study because the general things is not include the individual goods price in the macroeconomics. So general price level study causes and effects of inflation deflation. Also the policy measure on the inflation deflation is the subject matter of macroeconomics. The next is a theory of economic growth and development. So economic growth means a sustained increase in national income in GNP or per capita income over the sufficient long period of time. So long period of time increase in GNP or per capita income means the economic growth. And why? The economic development is the broad and wide concept. It's more inclusive concept because it is generally understood means the apart from increase in national income or per capita income, also the poverty, unemployment, inequality must be declined in the process of development. So apart from the increase in GNP and per capita income, the remove of poverty, unemployment, inequality is the include in the economic development. So economic development is the wide concepts, and theory related to economic growth and development is the subject matter of macroeconomics. It is the study of the causes of underdevelopment in countries and suggest the measures and strategies to accelerate the growth and the development. So what are the causes of the reduce the growth or not the country become developed? So there are the causes is explained into the economic growth and development theories. So growth theories also deal with the problem of full utilization of increasing productive capacity in the development of countries, and they explain how the higher rate of growth with stability can be achieved in these countries. So particularly growth is related to developed countries and economic development is related to developing countries. So theory of economic growth and development is the important part of macroeconomics. So it is considered in the subject matter of macroeconomics. Theory of distribution. Still, the another important point of subject matter of macroeconomics to how they determine the relative shares from the national income of the various classes like the worker and capitalists or the owner and the workers. So Ricardo, Caldo, Marx explain the theories and relative shares of the various classes in the national income. After that, Caldo also explained the revived theory in respect of national income and relative shares of wages and profit. Because unequal distribution of the income, they create the problem of inequality, problem of poverty and unemployment, and these are the major issues studied into the macroeconomics. Thus the macroeconomic distribution is deal with the relative shares of factors like rent, wages, interest, profit and their relative shares. So factors means the land, the workers, capital and entrepreneurs, their shares respectively rent, wages, interest, profit in the national income. So how the relative shares distribute with the factors is the subject matter of macroeconomics. The next is the theory of consumption and investment. The consumption function and investment function, these two are important subject into the macroeconomics, which is explained in the J.M. Keynes theory, the general theory of employment, interest and money. He explained the consumption function and investment function both for increase in effective demand. So let us start with the consumption function. C is the function of Y. C stands for the consumption, means the consumer goods of demand. F stands for the functions and Y stands for the income. S stands for saving. So C means the consumption, functions means depend on Y in income. So our consumption is depend on our income. But whenever the income is increased, is greater than increase on the consumption. So whenever income increase, consumption also increase, but income is increase greater than the consumption, because the income minus consumption is equal to saving. So deficiency of this is the aggregate demand, that cause of unemployment, the equilibrium level. So can suggest that need the increase in investment and create the effective demand. So whenever the income is increased, the consumption also increase, but the increase in consumption the less than the income. That's why need to increase the investment for increase in effective demand. So what is investment function? The R is the function of R and MAC. R stand for the interest rate, MAC stand for the marginal efficiency of capital. So investment is depend on the rate of interest and marginal efficiency of capital. So at a time the investor take his decision the basis of what are the rate of interest charged for his capital and what are the expected returns from the capital, so means the marginal efficiency of capital. And the investment in capital goods are important to increase in the production of consumption goods. So first increase in investment needed to increase in the consumption goods, and it would be increase the employment. Whenever the investment increase, the employment also increase, and increase the output level, and increase the employment, increase the income of the people and the nation, and then the increase in consumption, and finally increase in consumption means increase in effective demand. So increase in effective demand, remove unemployment and deflation problem, we need the study of the consumption function and investment function. So theory of consumption and investment is the include in the subject matter of macroeconomics. So next part is our the theory of consumption and investment. Then the theory of business cycle is also called the theory of trade cycle also. Business cycles refer to the fluctuation in output and employment level with the alternative period of boom and the recession. The period of prosperity is also called the boom, where the both output and employment in the reach highest level. But in the period of extreme level of recession, means the depression with the higher level of unemployment. So cause of these two creates ups and downs in the market, means the inflation and the unemployment is the create a problem in the market. Therefore the study of the fluctuation is the important in macroeconomics. So boom period where the economic activity reached to the highest level. These the horizontal line is suggests the economic transaction level, and the economic transaction is the reach the highest level of the normal levels, it's called the boom, and the below of these levels is start is the recession in the economy. Here is the start the recession, and then economy reach to the depression. After that the need to the lot of effort, increase in effective demand, investment in the economy for the recovery of this thing. So it is the depression. After that start the recovery. Next is the again the economy reaching boom period. So on x-axis we measure the time, y-axis we measure the economic transactions. When the economic transactions up from the normal level of transaction is called the boom, and when the economic transaction is lower than the normal level of transaction, it's called the depression. So theory of business cycle and their impact and the measures on the business cycle is the subject matter of macroeconomics is explained in the macroeconomics scope. Next, theory of international trade. The theory of international trade is particularly the study of the balance of payment. Means whenever within one economic years the country's export and imports include into the balance sheet of the country is called the balance of payment. So import and export both things are important because the import is create the payments and exports is the receipts. So whenever the import more than the exports, the disequilibrium create into the balance of payment and create the lot of problem for the economy. Foreign exchange market is also important part of the theory of international trade. There are the various currencies and their exchange rate determined into the exchange rate market. Means one country's currency expressed into the another country's currencies. So exchange rate is also important part. So the various currencies like the yen, the dollar, euro dollar, or the American dollar, what are the currencies in the exchange market and what are their exchange rate and how their fluctuations, the effect on the economy is studied into the theory of international trade. So international trade, how the international trade they begin with the two countries, what are their terms and conditions, it is the part of the macroeconomics scope. So theory of international trade is the part of the scope of macroeconomics. And again the next point you see that the number 8, public finance. The public finance is the subject is concerned with the income and expenditure of public authorities like the central government, state government or local government to achieve the certain macroeconomic objectives like full employment, price stability, economic growth. Government adopt the monetary or the fiscal measures, and also it is the part of macroeconomics. So public finance is the subject matter of macroeconomics because it is the concern with the public authority like government, central government, state government or local government. So these 5 contain including the public finance. Means public revenue, how the government collect the revenue, the sources of government revenue, non-tax revenue or tax revenue. Non-tax revenue means the government receive the income from the licenses, fees and penalties, and tax revenue like means direct tax, indirect tax, like direct tax, income tax, indirect tax like GST. Public expenditures means the government expenditure on the public for the providing various utility services like the education, health. So government expenditures for education, health, defense and various things means the public expenditure. And public debt, whenever the government revenue less than the public expenditure or the expenditure is the more than the public revenue, that time government take need to the public debt. So government borrow the money from the internal sources and external sources. Financial administration or budgetary policy. So every year government prepare budget and mention their expected income and expenditure for next coming years, and budgetary policies and their expenses and income heads mentioned into the budget. And fiscal policy, so fiscal policy is the important part of the public finance. So under the fiscal policy, what are the measures taken by the government? So fiscal policy is the important part of the public finance. So public finance is the subject matter of macroeconomics because it is concerned with the public authorities, means the concern with the government, and the macro level the economic study or the government income expenditure study is including public finance and also include in the scope of macroeconomics. So public debt, financial administration and fiscal policy also include in the public finance and macroeconomic scope. So here we complete our point of scope. So what we learn from this video? So we learn that the scope means the subject matter. Scope means the study area or the subject boundaries. What is the actually deal with in subject is mentioned in the scope. So scope of macroeconomics is a very large and include very wide range of aggregate variables like total demand, total supply, aggregate demand, aggregate supply, total saving, total consumption. So aggregate variable study into this macroeconomics. The scope of macroeconomics include theory of income and employment, classical theory or the Keynesian theory, theory of general price level, ups and downs, fluctuation of economy, theory of economic growth and development which is related to developed and developing country, theory of distribution, how the income distribute among the various classes, theory of consumption and investment means the investment and the consumption function, theory of business cycle, the boom period and depression, theory of international trade, international transaction of balance of payment, and theory of public finance, the income expenditure study of the public authority is the include in the subject matter of the macroeconomics. So macroeconomics particularly deal with the aggregate variables like national income, total employment, general price level, economic growth rate, total saving, total investment, etc. It examines the interrelation and interdependency of these aggregate variables. So next is the references and textbooks. You can refer these books which is available in the market and available in the library for your further study. So next, assignment question. What are the question will be asked in the examination on the topic of this? Explain in detail the scope of macroeconomics. For the examination, the 10 marks or 15 marks question will be asked for you. The explain in detail the scope of the macroeconomics. So thank you for watching this video. I think you learned something from this video, and next time we will be see the next video, the importance and significance of macroeconomics in our lecture number 4 or video number 4. So thank you once again watching this video, and next time we see with the next concept.